Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the JDC West 2023 Operations Management Case Presentation. Before starting today, the JDC West Organizing Committee would like to make a land acknowledgement. The University of Saskatchewan Saskatoon campus is located on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We pledge ourselves to create a competition that celebrates the diverse cultures and the histories of this land. Thank you to our judges, Tammy, Paul, and Brad. My name is Kate, and I will be the academic moderator for this presentation. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask those interest questions. Our academic timekeeper, in orange in the top corner there, will hold up timing cues throughout the presentation and the question period. Judges will indicate their intent to ask a question by raising their hand. I, the presentation moderator, will call on them to ask their question. Once the question period has concluded, the delegates will be escorted to leave the room. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience at any time. Please ensure that your cell phones are turned to silent and there is no talking amongst yourselves or signaling to the competitors throughout their presentations. Competitors, you're free to begin the presentation.
Awesome, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to all of you for taking the time and being here with us today. My name is Morena, and I'm joined here today by Gustavo and Josh. And we're really excited to present to you a current state assessment and recommendation for Libertime Apparel Limited. And so diving straight into the executive summary to give you a brief overview of what the next 20 minutes will contain, the primary issue that we examined with this engagement was the allocation of manufacturing capacity to your different product lines. We understand at the moment the focus has been in manufacturing products. However, we recommend shifting that and focusing more so in the peoples. And this will ensure higher profit margins and will also ensure that more sustainability for the company, especially given the time, the hard times that it's been going through recently. And the secondary issue that we examined was the quality of the materials that are being used in the current production facilities. We recommend switching suppliers to Canada Browse long term. This will ensure high quality in your products as well as remaining customer satisfaction and retention in the long term. And so next we'll dive into the, we really wanted to highlight the production process in your manufacturing plants. We understand, speaking with the VP of production, Paul, we understand this was a crucial success factor in switching and lowering your capacity. Having this process optimized was really important to ensure things have been running smoothly and you're still able to sustain yourself, even though we had a pretty big loss with the customer. And so moving on to the next slide. So quick company overview. We wanted to highlight the model. We understand you're currently operating in a business-to-business model with contracts, mainly operating contracts as an apparel manufacturing. Obviously, in this point, we like to also highlight the importance of that relationship management and the quality for future business. And with the product lines, we understand that currently you are focusing in manufacturing podcasts of e-coats and vein coats. We understand historically the podcasts have been the highest profit margin, and that historically has been the focus. However, we will examine this a little bit further later in the presentation. We wanted to also highlight some of the challenges. We understand that the HBC client loss has been a pretty hit for the company. However, we have been you have been able to manage that quite well, given that that client itself was responsible for 50% of the output volume. We understand the impact that this has had in the company itself. And so as a result of it, we understand that you've also have been going through a lot of change in your company as well, including downsizing, which has included staff layover and then lowered the capacity as well. And so moving on next, we wanted to highlight some of the challenges portrayed to the product line itself. Obviously, navigating through this period of change, we wanted to highlight the price increase on the raw materials. 60% is quite exponential, and so we want to take that into our view. We want to highlight that and obviously including our recommendations later on. And then as it pertains to the raw materials, the fill quality is also really important. We understand the industry that we currently operate in, it's quite changing, quite evolving, and so are the expectations and the benchmarks. Currently, the products that you are using are at 700, whereas the benchmark for the industry is 750. And so moving on to the next slide, we also wanted to highlight here some analysis of the contribution margin. So at the moment, we have 45% for parkas, peacoats 55%, and raincoats 59%. With our recommendation, and Josh and Gustavo will touch on this a little bit later on as well, but switching suppliers will ensure that the margins stay high for that peacoat section. And so moving on to the next one.
Yeah, so looking at some of the decision criteria we used when coming to our recommendation and our decision that we're about to present to you, the first thing we want to touch on is that we're looking to increase your sales of the product with the highest contribution margin, which we'll get into later, is in fact the peacoat. And also we want to meet a minimum down power level of 750, as that is the industry minimum. So looking at the first decision we looked at is which product should be emphasized to customers. We understand you have three main products that you sell: peacoats, parkas, and raincoats. We think that you should emphasize the peacoats as your main product that you sell to customers and advertise to customers. This is because it has the highest contribution margin of $151 or 55%. And it also is able to avoid the Gore-Tex price influx because it doesn't use Gore-Tex in the materials. The other one, which historically you believe was the highest contribution margin, is the parkas. However, we did perform a new product analysis, which has showed that after the Gore-Tex price increase, it actually only has a contribution margin of 34%, which is the lowest out of your three products. And lastly, looking at your raincoats, they also suffered from the Gore-Tex price increase, which is shown in their contribution margin of 42%. Looking at the other decision we considered is which downfill supplier should you switch to. A few key ones that we looked at are Canada Grouse, Antoine and Swan, and Good Luck Duck. I also want to highlight that you provided us with Featherfallen and your current supplier, which is Melford Mallers. However, neither of them meet the recommended fill power requirements of 750, so therefore we are looked towards these other three options. We believe that the Canada Grouse option is the best for you because it has a fill of 800 downfill power, and it's also the least expensive per unit price, which we believe to be very valuable for your company, as you're coming off of a large loss of customers, and going for an expensive product right now would be unwise. Similar to that, Antoine and Swan, they have the most expensive per unit price, and Good Luck Duck is also more expensive than Canada Grouse, which is why we're recommending Canada Grouse. And lastly, you also posed to us that Nana Apparel Co. has came to you with a offer to manufacture their products. We don't think you should accept this deal as it would allow Louboutin to develop its own processes and increase growth with its own products rather than relying on another company's products. We've also found that the opportunities that we will highlight for you have shown to be more profitable than this opportunity. If you were to go with it, it'd be extremely difficult, as you would have to produce a completely new set of products, which would mean requiring new suppliers as well as new employee training, which we found to be very costly and not worth it. So just to overview our recommendation again, first we're recommending that you change the allocation of materials towards peacoats in the short term, and then also to switch the supplier of your down to Canada Grouse in the long term. So looking closer at our phase 1 recommendation, which is the allocation of materials towards peacoats, In practice, this would look like informing your current customers of the upgrading quality, which will encourage them to order more and allow you to produce more. And also reaching out to new potential customers who may have turned you down in the past because of your low quality, and informing new customers of this increased quality. What this would do for you is increase your profit margin, since you're selling more of a higher contribution margin good, as well as it builds a strong product structure for you to grow off of in the future when you're rebuilding to compensate for the loss of Hudson's Bay Company. So looking at our phase 2 recommendation closer, which is switching the down supplier to gross. This will impact over time because of the increased product quality to increase customer retention and customer satisfaction. We also understand that your employees are an important part of the company too, and what they've said about using a 700 down currently is that they're finding it difficult to work with the feather down that you use, as well as the last shop I looked at would not accept a down fill of below 750, which, since we believe that your employees are very, very valuable as you have downsized now, that it's also important to help please them.
Awesome. So moving on to the implementation of the recommendation that Josh just gave, I would like to go over just how we're going to close off the presentation. So beginning with the implementation of phase 1 and 2, as we emphasized, the first phase is going to be the rebuilding phase. That's going to be getting back on your feet after Hudson's Bay left you as their client, and almost rebuilding it to get to a place where you can grow and make more money, which is phase 2. The idea is getting back to capacity, getting back to the capacity that it was before. The metric that is used here is going to be the shifts per day worked. Next, we're going to look at some key performance indicators. And lastly, we are going to close off with some risk and mitigations of our implementation. So moving on to the first phase of this implementation, it's going to take an executive meeting, and it's going to cost almost $20,000 on that. So 5 executives, about $240 per paycheck, 16 hours. So that's 1 day, 16 hours running the 2 shifts. We have this allocated for Q1 and Q2. However, it is only in the 1 day. So as long as it gets performed within that time frame of 6 months, in 2023. So next on is, once the decisions are made by the executive team, is to meet with the management team. And this is the management salary. So five people, once again, $80 per hour, 1 day, so the 1 meeting. Next, more importantly, is to renegotiate with the suppliers. This is because you are going to be changing what your orders are. As we stated before in Josh's recommendation, is that because we are changing the emphasis on the product mix, there's going to be a need for reallocating the orders that are made. And this is to lessen the blow from the increase of the Gore-Tex price, the 60% increase, and emphasizing on the peak codes. So meeting with suppliers about 2 weeks' time of a management pay. 2 managers can be in charge of this to meet with the suppliers one-on-one. Next, it would be meeting with the apparel distributors. This is more important because you just lost your biggest client. You're going to need to either renegotiate with your current clients or find new clients. Therefore, we've allocated 3 months' time, or 1 quarter, for this, and this is to be done after the meeting with suppliers is completed and after the meeting with management is completed. So after all the decisions are made, this is going to cost just over $150,000. And lastly is to train the staff of these new procedures. So once again, we're allocating a full quarter, on this. However, we believe that 20 days should be sufficient time to train your staff. And this is the hourly rates that your staff are to be trained at. So this would be the training that is going to take place here is going to be train more people to make more P codes rather than parkas, because we are shifting the allocation mix. So moving on to phase 2 of the implementation, this is where we believe the company can make more money based on growth and by getting back to that capacity that I was talking about earlier before the Hudson's Bay left there was the 3 8-hour full-time shifts, which is, our team believes that this is an achievable goal within 2 years. So the first step is to renegotiate with suppliers. So this is because you are going to be changing the feather fill that is in all your jackets. And the idea behind this is we believe that a huge part of the client appraisal comes from the quality of this feather fill, and by switching to something that is in 750 in its rating, not only they're going to be more appealing to more clients, but it's going to be more appealing for clients' retention. Therefore, they will keep buying these coats. Next is to train the staff of this new material. So this is because the new material requires different processes to be done for the coats to get made. Therefore, the staff will need to also be updated on this. So once again, just 1 week since it's just changing one step of the procedure. And this is broken down per employee. And lastly is to bring the capacity back up as we believe the demand will also increase with the quality increase. So that will require to hire more staff once again. And this is to get the numbers back up to how they were before. So this would be hiring more tailors and more operators of the machinery. So moving on to some key performance indicators. Currently, you are making about 20 parkas a day. This, as we've analyzed, is inefficient when it comes to your product margins. Therefore, a key performance indicator is to have this shifted over by the end of 2021 to be the peacoats. So be making a maximum of 20 peacoats a day by the end of 2023, pardon me. And because of that, that can be an accurate measure on how many peacoats you can sell. Moving on is the hires that I was referring to in the implementation. So there's going to need to be 11 new hires trained and hired by the end of 2024 to be able to bring the capacity back up to improve those profits as we were referring to. So moving on is our risk and mitigations. So the first risk with this implementation is that the current distributors and retail apparels that you currently have are not willing to take the P codes change because of this. This is why in the implementation we've allocated plenty of time. We understand that you just lost your biggest client and you need to re-emphasize, renegotiate your current relationships, but this is also a place to start once again and find new relationships with people. And since you are still selling the same product, the only things you are changing are the amount of products you are selling. We believe that this can be easily mitigated by renegotiating and going out, giving yourself time to do so. The next risk is that the demand is brought back up for your product. So this, while it may seem like not a risk, the problem is that you don't have the capacity to actually sustain this demand. So mitigation, as I was referring to in the implementation, is to bring back the 3 full-time 8-hour shifts to be able to produce 33%, theoretically, more of the products as you were referring to before. As you can see, these are both lower on the impact scale, with the first one being higher with higher probability, and the second one, which is the demand spiking, again, impact. This is also low impact with low probability. So lastly, I'd like to talk about some future considerations that were mentioned in the notes. So we believe that once you're back up and running and your revenues are increasing once again, it is important that you go back to aligning truth and values aligning corporate values with truth and reconciliation. This is from the employee engagement feedbacks that were brought. We believe that your company can very much benefit from this, from going back to its roots. Next is, once again, once the profits are increasing, is to amp up the business analytics. And this is to avoid events like this occurring once again, in case the quality is decreasing. And lastly is to reevaluate the Nanook partnership that we said was not a good idea for now. However, in 2 years' time, it may be.
So thank you. And so just to conclude our presentation here today, to wrap up our recommendations, we recommend shifting the focus and allocating more of your resources to manufacturing the P-codes. This will ensure high profit margins, but also ensure that you're able to sustain the company during these difficult changing times. And additionally, we recommend switching suppliers. This will ensure you retain the high quality, reputation you have retained for your products, but in your customer relations as well. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
So if you want to increase your manufacturing for the Pico up to 20, but you're going to face this constraint that's stopping you from doing things. And what is your plan to make more products with what we have now? And what is stopping us from doing that?
Just to clarify, it's not exactly about only increasing the amount of P-coats, but it's about reallocating materials that would have gone to something like a raincoat or a parka instead to a P-coat. So we're still keeping at the same production output for now, and it's just reallocated to the P-coats instead of the other two products.
Really quickly mention that how we can have stopped that. Did you guys do some analysis on the benefits of that? You did mention at the end we might relook at that. Kind of really quick, abrupt, not going forward. So how do you get there?
So in terms of evaluating the project, we wanted to really focus on the base business. We understand that at the moment we are kind of in a crucial situation where we are trying to sustain the business. And although that project might have positive implications in the future, when we look at the profit margins for the project itself, we were looking at a profit margin of 50%, whereas currently the P-codes they're offering us a margin of 55%. And so obviously, even taking a look at the change that that project itself brings, we don't want to allocate too much of our resources in that at this moment. At the moment, our goal is really to get you back and running to where you were previously when you had your biggest client. And once we get up there, we can reevaluate this project and see what's best for the company. We want to make sure that whatever you take on in the future, you're able to run with it for it to be successful.
Can I just speak to the future considerations? You've got aligning with corporate values and truth and reconciliation. Do you see any short-term actions towards that as well, or is that only reserved for future? And if there are short-term, what might that look like?
So the reason why we left these out for future considerations is once again because we believe that your company is in a state that needs to be the primary focus is to get back up and billing clients. If we were to look at these in the future and what they would look like, this would be building relationships with locals, to sell to more people locally, whether it is in the prairies or not. But that's what the emphasis would be in the future.
You mentioned one KPI, the shifts per day worked. What other KPIs would you be looking at? Oh, these ones. Okay, we're good. Next question.
You mentioned bringing back new staff, but there's still inefficiencies in the actual manufacturing process itself. When you bring all of these people back, what's your plan to effectively bring them back into that manufacturing process so that they're generating the revenues that we paid them, because they were cut due to the lack of cash flow?
Yeah, so hopefully once we increase sales again and sort of adjust the product offering, it will allow us to have enough cash to play with where we can invest in other opportunities that may increase our production output. And it's at that point that we can start to bring more people in and continue to increase the production efficiency.